here we're going to talk about grace period, because if without grace period, the day you lose your job is the day you lose your legal status. So the 60-day grace period was enacted in 2017. So before 2017, for HO and L working visa, there is no grace period at all. Like I said, the day you lose your legal status is the day you lose your legal status. But right now, because we have a 60-day period, grace period, which means this 60-day grace period is very precious to help you to prevent a foreign worker lose their legal status because of the termination of their employment. So the 60-day grace period enhance the job portability and also help you to maintain your legal status. Then the next question is, what kind of working visa will have the 60-day grace period to help them to maintain status? E1, E2, E3, H1B, H1B1, L1, O1, and TN visa. So those types of visa, if you lose a job in the middle of the valid period, you will have 60 days grace period to help you to plan the next step, file application to maintain your legal status. The next question is, when does the 60-day grace period start? This is very important and a critical issue, because when does the 60-day legal grace period starts depends on how much time you have to plan your next step. Then this is the question related to the definition of the H1B termination date. So when does your H1B or L or O terminates? It's either the last day of work or the last day of pay. So there is many rumors online talking about this issue. So we're going to clarify that. When your job is terminated, you will get a notice from your employer. And your employer will also notify USCIS the termination of your job. So if your employer sends a notice to the USCIS on the termination of your job, that notice will have the last day of work. And that last day of work controls, which means your 60-day grace period will start the next day of your last day of work on the notice your employer sends to the USCIS. Meta offers 4 months pay package, plus additional 2 months of health insurance, which is very generous package. However, does that extend or prolong the starting of your 60-day grace period? Conservatively speaking, no. Because for that 4 months package, you are not on the regular payroll of Meta as an employee. This is the pay package for the layoff. So conservatively speaking, if Meta sent a notice to the USCIS, actually Meta doesn't need to, because everybody knows that. It is the public news. So if that's the case, very likely USCIS does not consider that 4 months you are employed. So this way, it's not like many things that, oh, I have 4 months and the 60 days will start after the 4 months, after the last day of pay. That's not the case. I would not advise my clients to take that stand, because conservatively, the 60-day grace period starts the next day of your last day of work. So that's how much time you get to plan your next step. Many small companies, like the layoff is not so public. It's not everybody knows when is the layoff and how is the layoff package. Small companies also don't notify USCIS about the layoff. If this is your situation, USCIS will use your last day of pay to determine the last day of your work. If that's your case, then your 60-day grace period will start the next day of your last day of pay. So it depends. It's different depends on the situation, depends on how the layoff goes on, depends on how your employer notifies the USS about your last day of work. So that's how to define the termination date of your working visa. Then the 60-day will start the next day of it. We are continue talking about 60 days before we talk about the options you will have. So 60-day grace period. Does that mean everybody will get the full 60-day period? Not exactly. So some people will get less than 60 days. Why and how? 60-day grace period will only be offered for those foreigners who have a working visa, that whatever is left for your valid working visa period is more than 60 days. If whatever left in your working visa valid period is less than 60 days, whichever is less will be the time you have to plan your next step. For example, if your H-1B is going to run out in 30 days at the time you got laid off, you don't have 60 days to plan your next step. You only have whatever left in your valid H-1B period. Only when the leftover period is more than 60 days, you will have 60 days left for you to plan the next step. So for the foreign worker, you have less than 60 days valid period in your approval notice, then you have whatever is left for you. Another possible situation is USCIS has the discretionary power to determine whether it could shorten your 60-day grace period. Why and how? When you have a violation of your status, when you have unauthorized employment during the grace period, when you have fraud or national security concerns, when you have criminal convictions or other violation or other reasons, USS could have discretionary power to shorten your 60-day period. So on those kind of situation, please remember, not everybody has a full 60-day full-term grace period. So if you have less than 60 days left in your approval notice, you have that. If you have violation of your status, probably USS will shorten your 60-day period. And for some foreigners, they don't even have 60-day period. So how and why? Only one grace period for each petition valid period. What does that mean? Once you get your petition approved, during that approved valid period, you only have one grace period. Once you use out of this one, you cannot have a second one unless you have another petition approved. So this is one grace period per each petition valid period. So once you use out, you don't have a second one. And once the petition is denied, let's say you got laid off because the layoff caused the termination of your employment. But if you do H-1B transfer, if you do H-1B amendment, if that petition is denied by the USCIS, do you have 60-day period? No, you don't. So that's why in certain situation, you don't even have a 60-day period. So that's the 60-day period, how it plays in different kind of situation when you lose your job by laid off, or when your H-1B or working visa is denied for such a reason, or when you have a violation of status, how much time you get and what kind of solution you could take. So that's how the 60-day period is determined in the different kind of situation.